All right, hey guys, this is Emily Moyer, and this is just a very impromptu recording that I'm making. Laura is here with me just to sort of like go through what has been going on the last now 24 hours. And yeah, so that's why she's here. So hi to Laura. Um, okay, so excuse my hair and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't planning on a video. So
I was.
She's always better prepared for having to do something that requires looking good than I am.
Proper prior planning.
She's better at it than I am. Let me just make sure the volume is good real fast because sometimes the volume, yep, it always does that. All right, volume is better now. Okay, so here's what's going on. So I have a patrons only podcast that I do called Magic Carpet Ride. And what this is it's for patrons, and the guests are patrons. So I have a lot of interesting people that are part of my community that have been there for a long time, many years. And I enjoy talking to them. And some of them have had really interesting things happen in life, or we have something in common, or they know something about something or whatever. So I started this series a few months back, and I've done 4 episodes. There's only 3 of them because one was a 2-part, and I recorded the 3rd one last week with
Jason Alexander.
no, Jason Alexander is an actor. Actually, I'm gonna just say Jason. Jason Alexander is an actor. It's not Jason Alexander. I'm just gonna say a patron of mine named Jason, because he agreed to do a podcast for my patrons only, not for the whole world to sort of know about. So if you would like to see the podcast, you can go to my Patreon page and it is available there. I'm not saying this to get people to go to Patreon. I'm just recording an oddity that happened, and I will probably be doing more work on this in the days and weeks to come. But we recorded, Jason was a sort of participant in the very interesting and unusual club kid scene phenomenon that occurred in New York in the mid-90s. The main character of which was Michael Alig, right? He was the famous club kid who had a movie called Party Monster made about him, as well as a documentary that went along with that, and then another documentary a few years ago when he was released from prison called Glory Days. Michael Alig is infamous for having killed his drug dealer and stuffed him in a bathtub, filled him up with Drano, and then chopped him up, put him in a box, and put him in the river. But forgot to poke holes in the box, so the body was found, and eventually he was caught and did time in prison. He was released a few years ago and seemed to go right back into the same social environment in New York that he left, which is odd. Like, generally, when somebody's been in prison for 17 years for murder, they return to like their hometown, a small town, or go someplace where nobody knows them and try to just get a job and get on with it. But that isn't what happened here, right? Anyway, so when Jason let me know that he had participated, that he had been there, and he had actually worked for Michael Alig, I was like, great, let's go, let's do a magic carpet ride. I know some things about this scene and some of these characters, and I'd love to dig into it with you. It's like a super weird topic, and I think there's some aspects of it that haven't been explored, because for as weird as this story and case is, nobody in the alternative media ever talks about it. Sophia Smallstorm and I did a small bit on it, like maybe a year and a half ago in a patrons segment. She had done some blogging about it because she had stumbled upon it onto the case when, she was researching something else. And Sophia never ceases to amaze me with the things she's interested in. I mean, obviously I come from the rave scene and the underground party scene, so it's not a shocker that I would be interested in this story, but I was very surprised that she was. So we talked about it a little bit, but other than that, I've not ever seen it really covered by people who look into, alternate theories of things, the, weirder aspects of the world we live in, MK Ultra, pedophilia, which are all things that were swirling about, in my opinion, in the story. And I even missed it for years. It was not until a couple of years ago that I started to put the pieces together on this one. And why does it say? That's funny. It says Jeff Gates. Oops, I haven't. Wrong name. Anywho, so I was looking forward to talking about it with Jason. So we recorded the show last Wednesday, and I decided that I was going to put it out as a bonus Christmas episode. Hold on just a second, guys. Okay, I'm back. So I decided I was going to put it out as like a Christmas bonus episode for my patrons, right? And so yesterday I, did all the stuff you need to do to render videos and post them and whatnot. And I didn't want to have to be on the computer today. Here I am. So I decided to do something that I've only recently discovered I could do, which is, because I'm not a tech person, schedule the post on Patreon. So I'm back here working on it, and I decided I'm going to schedule the post. And I'm like, what time should I schedule the post for? So usually I schedule them in the morning. The last time I did it, I scheduled it in the morning. She said, I know you should, it's Christmas, it's 12:25. You should schedule it for 12:25. So if you go and look on our Patreon page, this show was posted at 12:25 today. And the podcast version, which is available for people who don't want to watch the video, posted at 12:26 because I had that post right after. So we did that. And so that went out today, right? And I wasn't on the computer earlier today and whatnot, but for some reason I was looking at my phone later and I noticed that people were commenting on it. And for some reason I clicked on it. And the people in the comment section seemed linking to an article that was basically saying that Michael Alig died today, right? And I was like, it took a second to register, but 3 people in the course of an hour posted this, and I found my way to a newspaper article. And yes, it seems that Michael Alig died of a heroin overdose early this morning, just after midnight, New York time. He lives in New York. So like sometime just after midnight, and he died on 12:25, which is like, okay, this is like weird. It's like I had scheduled this show for 12:25 at 12:25. But I find it really odd that I did a show this week about him, never having really, done this before. And that he died on the same day that the show went out. And one could say that these things are coincidences or that's just strange. But if any of you have been tracking all of the work that Michael Wan and I have been doing over at Project Kids, we're starting to understand that coincidences can be controlled. Synchronicity is an intelligence tactic. And some of us seem to be tapped into some kind of like connected network that defies your regular explanations for things. So this could be a coincidence. I mean, it could be that my intuition, like that led me to want to talk about this topic right now, like I was just tapped in. Or on the more extreme side, the other way, like, Jason and I did get into talking about this story from some angles that it hasn't really been talked about, at least not publicly before. And maybe we bumped up against something and triggered something. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but it's pretty weird. And well, I think that isn't that. I don't know that that's significant. He did happen to die in an apartment in Washington Heights. And during the period of time that I lived in New York, I lived in Washington Heights. So if you listen to the podcast that I did, there was like some interesting, connections between, obviously there's a lot of connections between the rave scene and the club kid scene in New York and whatnot. But, there was definitely some stuff showing up with this guy and some symbolism and some tone. I don't even know what the word is. That is not that different from things that have gone on for me or other people who follow the thread of information that I'm involved in on the internet that we've experienced or that we talk about. So I just found it odd. And one of the other really weird things about this, and again, this is just me tracking connections here, was while I was working on this last night, Laura was in the kitchen.
Baking.
Laura was in the kitchen baking, and she was listening to Christmas station songs. And apparently the George Michael song Last Christmas came on, which the lyrics are like, last Christmas I gave you my heart and the very next day you gave it away. And Laura runs in here and asks me, was George Michael taken out? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And I recalled having talked about this on a show I did with Mark Devlin a couple of years ago when we were talking about how odd it is that the person who sang a song about last Christmas I gave you my heart died of a heart attack on Christmas Day. It was a couple of years ago. I think he died on Christmas Day of some kind of heart problem. That was weird enough in itself. I think I remember Mark Devlin believing that the next person that was going to fall victim to one of these strange deaths would be Boy George. He felt like that was the case. And to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened. Boy George is still here. He's still super strange, but still here. But what's interesting is that Michael Alig actually matches up to the profile in some ways of both of those guys. Very flamboyant, gay man involved in music, a music scene, a club scene, who had a tendency for using way too many drugs and getting arrested. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the other two were never arrested for murder, right? But there was some definite like checked off boxes in the type of people that these were. So now Michael Alig dies of a heroin overdose, which, you know, these kinds of drugs are drugs that both Boy George and George Michael have been known to use and have issues with and whatnot. You know, in the thing that was posted, the article that was posted today, it did say that Michael Alig had been arrested again back in 2017 for smoking meth outside of a New York courthouse. I never heard about that. He seemed to have his life somewhat together. During the podcast, we were looking at his Instagram page and some of his social media, and it did seem to stop abruptly at the very beginning of the pandemic. And so I even mentioned like maybe he's having a hard time, maybe he's depressed or whatever, right? So apparently he'd fallen back into using drugs. I don't know what the real deal is with Michael Alig. I don't know if he actually killed someone or if he was the fall guy for some other stuff going on in that scene. We all are familiar now with the way things go and when they're ready to shut something down and scapegoating and patsying. I don't know. He's a weird guy. If you watch the documentary Glory Days, it's equally like he's equally very disturbing and sometimes endearing. And there's probably people that feel the same way about me. So I don't know what happened. And, you know, if he killed somebody, he spent time in prison, you know, that's no good. But I don't know. Like with all of these things, we have to ask questions. And either way, like it's a sad thing when somebody dies, and whether he was taken out or he died of a drug overdose. Like this was like a really weird guy with a really weird life, and there was a lot more going on in that scene than meets the eye, and a lot met the eye. Like it was pretty weird to observe, but there was many more layers underneath that. I think there are threads that connect to, you know, obviously murder, right? We even talked about how, like, you know, some like Dave McGowan-y kind of stuff, or, you know, that during the episode. But connections to the infiltration of electronic music and dance music scene with the rave scene. Mark Devlin and I and many other people have gone on and on and on about that. There are connections here to, you know, things like Pizzagate and the deviant art that is associated with the pedophile, you know, sort of class and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't have any answers. I do have, I already had a lot of questions, and now I have way more questions. I asked a lot of the questions during the episode. So if people are interested, they can go watch it. I will probably be talking about some of this stuff more here on the YouTube channel in the days and weeks to come. And that's it. But I just wanted to record that this happened. Like, it is weird. Like the day that I put out a show about Michael Alig, this happens. And it could be, maybe it's nothing. I don't know. Synchronicity, coincidence, control. I have no idea. I've been noticing a lot of strange things lately. And I think we misunderstand a lot of things. Like, we've done a lot of research as a community, but I think sometimes we still misunderstand things. And I think sometimes when we think something is one thing, it's really another. And I've been taking a lot of look at like coordinates and like code names for things, or when things have like multiple things have the same name, like which one are we really talking about when we're talking about things and whatnot. And, you know, just this weirdness with the 1225 and whatnot. It might not be that weird. Maybe it just feels weird to me because it's happening, but I just thought I'd sort of record that here. I will link to the Patreon post in the description box below, as well as the article that was sent to me that sort of details, gives the details of his death. And I also recommend people go watch the documentary Glory Days and tell me what you think. But go watch Party Monster. There's a like a drama version with Macaulay Culkin. Then there was also like something called Party Monster Shockumentary that sort of came out at the same time. And then there's this Glory Days documentary. And the Glory Days documentary to me, like, was disturbing on a lot of levels because it looked like he went right back into the same culture being handled by the same people and doing a different version of the same things that he was doing all those years before. And when you guys take a look at some of the art and stuff that he had been producing, it's gonna, it looks a lot like some of the stuff that we talk about in terms of symbolism being used in mind control programs and, whatnot. Right. So I think that's it. Is there anything that I missed I
don't think so, but just want to give I guess like some love out to the people that were part of his family or his network and his community that are missing him and grieving him. And we don't know him personally, but after watching the documentaries, he was well loved in his community. And so I know he has a brother. So if any of these people are watching that, we just want to just give our condolences to you.
Yeah, one of the things that was striking, was odd, was that in the documentary, there's people who know that he's accused of murder, but they're like, hey, he was really nice to me and he helped me. He got me a job. He helped me make my name and he helped me, with a lot of things. And he was a nice person. Like even in the article that was posted today about his death, his neighbor in the building that he died in said, it was hard to believe when I heard about that he had murdered somebody because he was so nice. That's what his, just his neighbor in his building who knew him recently as a drug addict, but never knew about his history. And she couldn't imagine that was the person she knew. So, I mean, maybe there are more questions. Maybe that wasn't who he was. I don't know. This is one of the weirdest cases ever anyway. And now it's even weirder. And I don't know, maybe it's just me feeling weird. I'm weird. Anyway, so I just wanted to post a video on that. And I'm sure I'll have more stuff coming. And that's all. I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. And yeah, we live in a fucking weird world and it's extra weird right now. So hug the people you love, spend time with your family and friends, the ones that are close and the ones that are far. And yeah, we have a new year coming up and the world is insane, but I think there's a lot of possibilities for us. And so I wish everybody a very happy and healthy holiday season, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Good night.